And Notre Dame has been famous for never being in a conference, which means they never win a conference. They never play championship weekend. And Notre Dame has always found a way to either be in the CFP or not be in the CFP. This year, however, everybody's talking about the fact that Notre Dame's football team, remember their basketball team is in a conference. It's one of those weird things. Notre Dame's basketball is in the ACC, but their football is not affiliated. Why would their football team ever be affiliated? Notre Dame, throughout the weeks of ranking unveilings, live shows, was always ahead of Miami. Miami and Notre Dame did not play last weekend. This past weekend. They were not in any conference championships. When the final CFP was announced, Miami was in, Notre Dame was out, and what the committee said is, we had never really compared Miami and Notre Dame before, but when Miami passed BYU, who lost a game, which should or should not have mattered, I digress, then we had to look at Miami and Notre Dame against each other, and Miami had beaten Notre Dame, therefore Miami gets in instead of Notre Dame. It really is the most poppycock you could ever hear from someone running a committee, because when you are doing something subjective, it's all subjective. The reason why you legislate against subjectivity is that it opens the door to interpretation, and it changes the conversation from exciting debate to vitriolic revenue problems. How do I make that bridge? When you make it into the CFP, the conference for the team that you're associated with gets at least $4 million. When you're not affiliated with the conference, the way Notre Dame, who was in last year, they get to keep the whole $4 million to themselves because they don't have a conference. They give it to themselves. Notre Dame has the ability to go out and cut its own TV deal. They have. Notre Dame has always been different. They've always been able to self-monetize. The benefit of self-monetization is that you are not in any way dependent on anyone but yourself and your schedule that you choose. The negative is that you can never be a free rider. You can never be part of a conference that gets money from being in the CFP that gets split amongst the teams. You can never be part of a huge TV deal, way bigger, because you've got way more inventory to sell. But they've always chosen to go independent on the football side. Now that they are in that position where they've been overlooked by the CFP committee in a very bizarre turn of events, notwithstanding the great lobbying that Miami Hurricanes boosters and alums and people did to get Miami in the CFP, notwithstanding any of that, Notre Dame finds itself in a position where they have to decide, does the way we operate make sense going forward? Should we open ourselves up to the vagaries of this committee going forward? And news came out yesterday that they think they found the golden key to avoid the debate. It turns out that Notre Dame executed an MOU with college football, NCAA, CFP committee. Ready? No other team has this. Notre Dame is guaranteed of a spot in the college football playoff next year if they are in the top 12. No one else has that. You can be a high-ranking team and not high enough and not make the CFP. It's not getting enough attention. Notre Dame has decided, and somehow they got another party to agree, that they don't want to be subject to any of the issues that take place because of conference championship games, when in theory, teams can move up and teams can move down. Even though the NCAA would tell you, or the CFP would tell you, hey, listen, we're going to ignore Alabama's loss because we don't want to disincentivize teams from playing conference championships because there's a lot of revenue at stake. You can't argue to people to act in a certain way in the interest of money when it is not consistently applied. You can't argue to a team that their conference championship doesn't matter when another team's conference championship does. It makes it way smarter for a team not to be a part of a conference at all. And the breakup in the conferences would not in any way benefit anyone except, wait for it, the NCAA. You're not going to hear much about this concept, but who do you think would be rooting for less power among the conferences? SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, all the talk about super leagues, all the talk about the NCAA being nuked and neutered. Who would have an interest in everyone being independent and therefore requiring one governing body over every FCS team? Hold on, let me think. Give me a second. I'll get back to it, NCAA. I will try to think about how that would work if everyone were Notre Dame and everyone were then ranked by the same set of standards, and then the top 12 teams or top 26 teams if they expand, or top 24 teams or top 4 teams if they contract. Why wouldn't that be a better solution? What part of programming would the networks miss if we just had the weekly rankings and then the final rankings were the college football playoff? Would it make the conference championship weekend less interesting? No, because conference championships, which should be the top 2 teams in the conference, should, in theory, have an impact on the rankings. And I don't mean whenever they choose. I mean every conference championship game should be the top 2 teams in the conference, and the game should matter. And Notre Dame is no exception. Notre Dame should be part of whatever conversation it is, because if you choose not to play, how can that not be held against you? And that then got me thinking to the next concept about records and stats. Do you remember the conversation we had about a batting title, where at the end of a season, if you know that you've qualified for the batting title, you can choose to play or not play the last couple of games, because you just do the math. If you go 0 for 4 and the guy chasing you goes 2 for 4, you lose the batting title. But if you go 0 for 0, then no matter what the guy does, you win. There are many, many people who will choose and look at stats and then figure out a way to manipulate the schedule and the end of season schedule to be where they want to be. And I am all for it. But there's one thing you can't do. Teams can't not play. If a team is better off with a no decision than with a loss, then a team would certainly rather not play. But that doesn't ever come up. Teams have a schedule. They got to play the schedule. Whether it screws them or helps them or it does nothing because it's meaningless, you play the games that you're scheduled to play, that everyone has to play. That doesn't get debated. If Notre Dame had to play, if all of the top 25 teams had to play the final weekend of the season no matter what, it's not a bowl game because people are bowing out of bowl games, but it's the end of the regular season where the final weekend is conference championship weekend, but everyone in the top 25 plays no matter what. My solution is just that, because it guarantees another data point for the committee to make before their final ranking. My number one solution would be that the committee disappears and that it becomes totally analytic, scientific, and a computer spits out the rankings, because then we can be done with all the debating. But then what would we have done for the last 18 minutes? I didn't even get to talk about how angry people like Brady Quinn are, a friend of the show, very famous Notre Dame alum. I didn't get to talk about the fact that Notre Dame decided after they didn't make the CFP to not play a bowl game, and people are up in arms. Who cares? Who cares? What, they don't want to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl? It's your decision. You want to forego the money? Forego the money. Don't say that you don't want to play because you're upset that you're not in the CFP. You don't want to play in the NIT after you don't make it into the NCAA men's basketball tourney. Be my guest. Your choice. We're not forcing you to play. Your kids want to play. They don't want to play. They don't really have a choice. It's what the administration wants. You want to forego the embarrassment of being in a second rate. It's like, can you imagine in a soccer tournament, Coca, like the World Cup, if the 3-4 game, they were like, forget it. We're not in the 1-2 game. Why would we bother playing? Oh, because we want to be on the podium. Why? We want to win a bronze medal in the World Cup. There's gold and there's nothing. There's winning and there's nothing. You don't see teams bowing out of those games. Notre Dame not playing a bowl game makes me laugh. They're looked at as petty, as trite. It looked like they're upset with ESPN. They're upset with the CFP committee. They're upset with the world. Some people, when they're upset, withdraw. Retreat into darkness. I always have thought that's a plan that I would never consider until all of a sudden things happen and you consider it.